Millions of Americans have been hit by hurricanes, and the federal government, the Biden administration, and the governors of these states are working together to get people the help they need. But one particular political party doesn't like for the American public to see when government works efficiently. And that, of course, would be the party that traffics in cruelty and that loves to lie. That would be Donald Trump's MAGA party. Pumps, what you got for us?
It's unbelievable. As if eating cats and dogs were not bad enough and children having to stay home because of bomb threats, because of all the lies that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have propagated regarding immigration. The natural disaster, they are exploiting people's tragedies, deaths, loss of homes, loss of everything they own on the planet Earth. And here is what is just so telling about Donald Trump. He prefers the American people to be in crisis so that he can politically traffic in lies. First up is a clip regarding how he's saying that no government assistance is going out by the feds to these people.
If you want someone who steals your wealth and abandons your family when the flood's waters rise, those flood waters rise and they were gone. They haven't seen anybody from the federal government yet. The federal government isn't there.
First and foremost, he doesn't sound sober.
No.
And I know I've been saying that time and time again, but he sounds like he's on something. And you're exactly right. He wants Americans to suffer because then he can exploit suffering. And that is a real window into his soul and a window into the millions of so-called Christian Trumpers that enjoy human suffering and lies.
Absolutely. And another thing is, not only is he exploiting the people's suffering, he's lying about what their aid is to further fearmonger, to further put fear in them while they're in such a vulnerable state. He's lying about FEMA benefits. Kylie, play the clip.
I mean, this hurricane has been a bad one. Kamala Harris has left them stranded. This is the worst response to a storm or a catastrophe or a hurricane that we've ever seen, ever. Probably worse than Katrina, and that's hard to beat, right? Worse than Katrina. They didn't do too good a job either, but this is worse. And she sends their money to foreign nations. He and she, they send hundreds of billions of dollars. They send hundreds of billions of dollars to foreign nations. And you know what they're giving our people? $750. $700.
That is just a flat out lie. And interestingly enough, as he is saying that the Biden-Harris administration is stealing money from FEMA and giving it to foreign nations, he's also said they've used it to house immigrants in luxury hotels. Turns out, do you know who stole money from FEMA to put it towards the border and ICE?
Of course, it was Donald Trump.
Of course it was Donald Trump.
Of course, it was the most incompetent, cruel, sick, delusional president the free world has ever seen. Donald Trump.
Didn't you almost think he sounded gleeful when he was talking about people suffering for his political gain?
He does. When he talks about immigrants and they're bringing crime, the criminals, these guys are sick puppies, you can tell he gets off on it. And did you hear the audience weigh in? They are at their peak when they are talking about human suffering and trafficking and cruelty and lies. This is the weirdest, cruelest, most bizarre political movement I have ever seen. And they get darker and more cruel and worse as time goes on.
Absolutely. One thing that's important to note from these hurricane-ravaged states, the Republican governors are praising the response by FEMA and the federal government. Play the clip.
As of today, what has been the ongoing kind of federal assistance for South Carolina?
It's been superb. We're getting assistance, and we're asking for everything we need.
They're doing a great job. There can always work harder. There's always kinks in the slinky. We're working them out behind the scenes.
And you see this rush of local officials, FEMA, from the federal to the state to the local emergency management agencies, local county mayors with tears in their eyes out there serving their people.
We're grateful for the quick actions and close communications that we have had with the president and with the FEMA team.
We have been, Sean, I have to say, working well with FEMA. They, in fact, were moving very quickly over the last few days for us.
So to President Biden, thank you for coming. Thank you for paying attention to our needs. I think we've had good working relationship between the federal government.
It's amazing to me that hurricane damage and suffering can't even be bipartisan. But have you seen on far right-wing Twitter where Marjorie Taylor Greene and some others have claimed that the government is manufacturing these hurricanes? They are writing it down. One guy even writes the following tweet. I have to read it for you. It's so crazy you're going to die. Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend named Brian Glenn posts this online on the internet for everybody to see. Coffee Talk 101. Hurricanes are a part of nature. Surface water temperatures, wind shear, and barometric pressure play a huge factor in their development. But it's factually true that our government has the ability to enhance weather patterns / systems by cloud seeding, or otherwise known as weather modification. Look it up. This method is deployed around the world to help in drought-stricken areas. Here's to all my meteorologist friends that are on Facebook. Do you think our government is enhancing the intensity of these storms? Just asking a question. What exactly do these hurricane hunters do? They would be the only ones that are logistically close to the storms. Once again, I'm just asking a question. And yes, I've added raw milk to my coffee. I'm sure that'll trigger some of you. Brian Glenn, let me let you in on a little hot take this morning. I added raw half and half to my coffee, you pussy. You just did milk. I went for the strong stuff, you beta male piece of shit. What kind of crazy ass shit is this? He's asking his friends on Facebook? Are you kidding me? Facebook is the place where all of these imaginary scientific studies on vaccines took place that killed millions of people. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. You know, they will go to the most extreme to deny facts. And the facts are this: climate change is increasing temperatures, which is increasing weather-related disasters. But they just cannot. They cannot accept facts.
No, and I just might remind everyone that Donald Trump says climate change is a hoax because he doesn't have the capacity or the cognitive ability to acknowledge something complicated like climate change. Going back to Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, as embarrassing as that tweet is, it's more embarrassing to be Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, in my opinion. But that's here nor there.
There's no question about it. And it's embarrassing for the country that we have a member of Congress that is a toxic, wildly uneducated, divorced from reality member running around making decisions. And the way she behaves in public hearings and the jet stream of bullshit and racism and anti-science rhetoric that comes out of her mouth is just unbelievable.
And while Marjorie Taylor Greene is running around lying about hurricanes and government control, you know who's not working on behalf of the victims of this natural disaster? Let me tell you, it's Mike Johnson in Congress. A majority of the congressmen and women from these states voted against FEMA relief 2 or 3 days before this hurricane happened. And President Biden has called on Mike Johnson to please bring Congress back so we can give more aid to these disaster victims. And you know what he said? Well, just have to wait till after the election. So you tell me they're not using this natural disaster and people dying and losing their homes for the benefit of the orange Mussolini, and a brilliant, thoughtful response from Kamala Harris to all of these lies propagated by MAGA.
The other point I'd make is that there's a lot of mis and disinformation being pushed out there by the former president about what is available, in particular to the survivors of Helene. And first of all, it's extraordinarily irresponsible. It's about him. It's not about you. And the reality is that FEMA has so many resources that are available to folks who desperately need them now, and resources that are about helping people get back on their feet and rebuild and have places to go.
So that's what American leadership looks like. It's nonpartisan. What's so tragic about this is she has to cut through and say what you're hearing is false. We're here. We're on the ground. We have resources. The government's confirmed that, the governors have confirmed that everything Kamala Harris says is true, that the Biden administration is meeting every single request they put forward. But I can't let this go. That little twerp, Moses Mike Johnson, who has to run around thumping his Bible like a maniac, nonstop, 24/7, 365. This is your time to trot out your Christianity, big guy. This is your time to say, I see humans suffering, and I am here to help. I am here to provide aid and comfort. What does he do? He plays obsequious little twerp to Donald Trump. He dies on that hill. He has no backbone, no moral compass. And sometimes I like to go over and look at our piece of shit governor's Twitter. Right? He's doing the exact same thing. He's the guy that talks about his faith 24/7, 365. He won't shut up about it, which I want to say, the Christians that have to advertise nonstop how Christian they are, they are the worst people around you. They are charlatans. And there's no bigger example than this of Mike Johnson and our governor, Kevin Stitt. Kevin Stitt puts on his Twitter, while the Biden-Harris administration isn't meeting needs of victims, Oklahomans are on the ground to show support. And what I have to say to you, Kevin Stitt, do you pray to Jesus Christ, your Lord and personal Savior, with that same lying mouth that you put out on Twitter? Do you? Answer to that. It just pisses me off, the religious hypocrisy of the right wing, how they're just performatively religious to try to scare people into voting for them, to think, oh, that guy's with Jesus, so I'm going to vote with him. And they're the biggest charlatans ever. And look at Governor Stitt's policies. Look at Moses Mike Johnson's policies. Look at who they support for president. They are hypocrites. They are fake Christians. I'm not a religious person, but I would go on record to say, if Jesus were real, he would hate both of them.
Absolutely agree.
All right. Subscribe and like and stick with us for more hot takes.
It's so